as of now, there are still many unanswered questions in regard to the terror attack in London. This is regarding the terror attack that has injured 22 individuals. Luckily, there have been no fatalities. Now, even though nothing is confirmed in terms of who decided to detonate this homemade bomb inside a London train, Donald Trump has already tweeted about this. He tweeted immediately and has already speculated in terms of who carried out this attack. I'll give you the examples. He tweeted, "Another attack in London by a loser terrorist. These are sick and demented people who were in the sights of Scotland Yard. Must be proactive."
Let's just pause there. Let's break down each tweet. So as I said in the earlier story, I actually think, I know it sounds goofy calling them loser terrorists. I actually think that it's perfectly fine because they want to be winners. They want to be glory. They want to get glory and honor. And if you just ridicule them and call them to what they are, which is losers, and they couldn't accomplish anything in their lives, so they had to go to violence and destruction to do it. It might seem a little childish to some of us, but I don't think so. I think it's a fine thing to say. Now, as I read the rest of the tweet, I was like, wait, you're saying Scotland Yard's on it. There's no way, the first time I read it, I was like, there's no way that Scotland Yard already wanted to announce something. Unless they already caught the guys, but I already read that they didn't catch the guys yet.
Right.
So I was like, oh, God damn it, did you leak, did you accidentally give out classified information again, you knucklehead? And then I go to Scotland Yard's statement on it, they're like, we do not want to talk about who we might or might not be tracking. In other words, the idiot US president once again gave information he shouldn't have given. And then the last sentence there, must be proactive. I mean, if you mean that Scotland Yard and our authorities should be proactive in tracking terrorists, of course they should be proactive. If you mean proactive in what? And then later he's going to talk about the travel ban. Proactively targeting all innocent people in a certain category, then no, you would be wasting Scotland Yard's resources when they should be tracking leads so that they can stop bombings like this. Well, then again, unfortunately, we're back to you being an idiot.
All right, so he continues on with loser terrorists must be dealt with in a much tougher manner. The internet is their main recruitment tool, which we must cut off and use better.
Okay, wait, this is way worse. Okay, you want to deal with terrorists in a tougher manner. First of all, we have the death penalty in America, so we can execute them. Tougher how? Okay, now that's in the UK. They don't have death penalty, but their maximum punishment is life in prison, and they're presumably working as hard as they possibly can. But no, he doesn't mean that. He means tougher as in, don't target that terrorist who did that, target other people that didn't do it, like my stupid Muslim ban. Or tougher as in, go bomb more random places in the Middle East. Why don't you go and seek justice for the people who actually did this? Okay, but the second part is much worse. The internet is what they use, so we gotta stop it? Oh, no. What are you gonna do? Like now he's gonna come up with regulations. First of all, I thought you were against regulations. Now in regulations to what? Stop free speech on the internet? Or better use the internet. What the hell does better use the internet mean?
I know, but look, obviously that kind of statement is incredibly dangerous for anyone who believes in a free and open internet. And I would be more concerned if I thought of Trump as someone who thinks anything through. He doesn't think anything through. He doesn't even have a real political ideology, which is the reason why he's jumping from one political party to the other at the moment, which is frustrating a lot of Republicans in Congress. But he just says things without thinking about the ramifications. Obviously, that can be extremely dangerous, especially when he's unwittingly leaking classified information pertaining to an investigation on a terrorist attack. But in this case, okay, he's saying this, but he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have any real thought process behind it. He's just not fit to be president. He doesn't think about anything he does before he does it. He doesn't think about anything he says before he says it.
And if you're, I'm sorry, Annie, you're 1,000% right. If you're a right winger out there right now watching this online, you really want him to, as he said, quote, cut off the internet? Do you know what that means? Nobody knows what that means. Trump doesn't know what it means. And if he actually means it, I mean, let's assume he's stupid or a liar, like you probably assume the same exact thing. But if he meant it, and you believe in your beloved Trump and he's gonna cut off the internet, do you think that's a good idea? You live on the internet, right? You use the internet. What is that's so preposterous and stupid, and it goes along the same lines as the Muslim ban. Let's not get the guy who actually did it. Let's just cut off the internet for everybody. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Let's not go get the guy who did it. Instead, let's ban random people from Yemen or Sudan.
Right, and also the internet can be a great tool for intelligence communities who are hyper-focused on monitoring extremists rather than indiscriminately collecting metadata on everyone.
I got to say one more thing about that. If I'm the president, whether it was Obama or Trump, I'm furious at our intelligence services because Al-Qaeda has a magazine. Jesus Christ, it's called Inspire Magazine. They're very inspirational, and they talk about how, and they recently put out a thing saying do bombings on trains, and here we have a bombing on a train, right? You can't track their magazine online. You can't track their tweets and figure out who the hell is saying it, and then target them and get them. And we got them, their leaders running around, and it's decade after decade. What the hell do we have intelligence for? What, to randomly spy on us? To do warrantless searches of Americans and not actually catch the bad guys? I wouldn't be going out there wasting the time of the intelligence services on blanket, okay, go scour the entire internet or 1.6 billion Muslims. I'd be like, get me the sons of bitches that are putting this message out. You can't track from Al-Qaeda has better tech than we do. I'd fire everybody in the intelligence community and I'd go hire the best tech guys in the world. I would do whatever I needed to do to find out where the hell these guys are that are bombing us. That would be a good use of the intelligence services, and the fact that they haven't demanded that of them is disgraceful.
All right, so the tweets get worse because he hasn't yet speculated in terms of who the terrorists are, but he's about to do so. So the travel ban into the United States should be far larger, tougher, and more specific, but stupidly, that would not be politically correct. Okay, so I wanna stop for a second with this tweet especially because, all right, look, I get it. I think it's fair to speculate that the person who carried out or the people who carried out this attack are Muslim extremists. However, as the president, you shouldn't speculate. You should wait until you get the facts and then go ahead and make your statement. And look, if you disagree with that point that I just made, just keep in mind Donald Trump's reaction or non-reaction to Heather Heyer getting murdered at that hate rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, and then when he got criticized for delaying a reaction and then refusing to condemn the white supremacists, here's what his excuse was. Let's take a look.
Here's the thing. When I make a statement, I like to be correct. I want the facts. This event just happened. In fact, a lot of the event didn't even happen yet as we were speaking. This event just happened. Before I make a statement, I need the facts. So I don't want to rush into a statement. So making the statement when I made it was excellent.
Okay, so where are the facts? Because again, for a regular average Joe to speculate among friends, that's one thing, and that's fine. And I get the urge to speculate. But you are the president of the United States. And so you especially can't have a double standard when it comes to an American getting murdered by a white supremacist in our own country. Okay.
So it's a great point by Anna. Let's just quickly review. And again, I agree with you, Anna. We're talk show hosts. We're allowed to speculate. So we think it's likely Muslim extremists because Al-Qaeda asked people to do that kind of specific attack. It's happened before, and it is. Now, but we obviously are open-minded that it might not be. Because there's other kinds of terrorists in the world. There's other kind of right-wing terrorists, left-wing terrorists usually go after like animal farms or whatever they're doing. Anyway, so open mind, fine, okay. But you're the president, and you just told us that the standard was no. I mean, if there's terrorists and Charlottesville was an act of domestic terrorism according to the Justice Department, et cetera, that you have to wait a couple of days and get all of your facts. But in this case, it was just a couple of hours. And Scotland Yard said, please don't put out a statement. Theresa May had to say, no one should put out a statement if they don't have all the facts, meaning like Donald Trump, shut up, right?
Yeah.
So instead, he thinks it's Muslims, so he jumps right in it. And Donald Trump, are you gonna say, well, they're good people on both sides? Are you going to say that about this? But when it was a domestic terrorism about our country, remember you're our president, our country, and someone got murdered, good people on both sides. He is so despicable.
Well, the only thing I would say, and I mean, you're covering it very good. I just would say that, how do we handle this now? We react exactly the same. I like what you said. We're the only ones under surveillance. Why do we have all the surveillance if we can't find these guys? They have a magazine. That's a great point. We just the United States government just decided to spend $100 billion more on defense than they spent last year. $100 billion more. So are we going to use that money exactly the same way? Yes. Now, is there a way, what would be better to stop terrorism? What are the root causes of terrorism? Nobody ever talks about the root causes of terrorism in the way they should talk about it. So right now there's 7 million people who don't know where their next meal is coming from in Yemen. And there was 13,000 civilians killed in 1 year from March 2015 to March 2016. That's the Allied bombing campaign killed 13,000 civilians in that. So
why are we fighting Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen?
Exactly.
Why are we doing that?
Petrodollar. That's why we're there.
That's exactly right. And so when Yemen is facing famine and innocent family members, children getting murdered on our watch because of our actions, you think that that leads to love toward the United States or the Western world, right? Look, and so people will take that and say you're making excuses for the terrorists.
No,
but that's not making excuses for the terrorists. Those terrorists who carry out those actions need to be brought to justice, right? But you also have to take a step back and think about whether or not our foreign policy has been working, and it is not working. It is draining our resources. It is killing our soldiers and members of our militaries. It's killing countless civilians abroad.
Bankrupting our treasury.
So
my point is, what if we would have taken that $100 billion that we don't need to spend, which we're spending just because it's a giveaway to the military-industrial complex, and we tried to actually help people in Yemen instead of trying to kill them at the behest of Saudi Arabia? Maybe that would be. I think that's a better anti-terrorism tactic than to keep trying to blow up people who are poor and desperate.
Yeah. So let me comment further on that. First of all, this is part of the problem of corruption. So you say, wait, what does corruption have to do with this? Because we allow legalized bribery in America, and so what do defense contractors do? Well, they want $100 billion extra, so they go and bribe almost all of our politicians. And by the way, they also put ads on television, even though they don't sell anything to consumers. Well, why do they have ads on TV? Can you buy a multi-billion-dollar jet? No, you can't do it. Or a aircraft carrier? No, but they have ads, millions of dollars ads anyway, because what they're doing is they're buying TV's compliance. And so it's not an accident that you have vapid people like Joe Scarborough on TV. He's paid to be stupid. So he goes on there and famously said, when they were trying to figure out why sometimes we're attacked by Muslim radicals, he said, oh, they hate us because they hate us. And he repeated it 3 times. Oh, that was his genius conclusion. His intellect and scholarly work led him to conclude that they hate us because they hate us, they hate us because they hate us. Well, I mean, who would pay someone to say such a stupid thing to a national audience? Well, the people who think, don't tell them the truth, don't actually try to solve the problem. Just put on a bunch of idiots who will go, hey, if you're trying to find out the root cause of terrorism, instead of saying, oh, that's great, so we can stop terrorism, no, we're gonna yell at you and say, oh, are you trying to blame both sides? Are you trying to say that it's our fault? No, we are America, and everything we do is wonderful and perfect, and they hate us because they hate us. I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to figure it out. I would like to be proactively stupid like Joe Scarborough. That is what they get paid for, to be stupid. So let's not make that mistake. So if you actually think about it for a second, why do we have radical Islam running around? I don't want to get into the whole dissertation on it, but you should go back and watch the video I did explaining how the goddamn Saudis funded media and changed the culture all across the Muslim world and went towards radicalism and towards violence because of their Wahhabi strain of Islam. That was not dominant Islam until the Saudis paid for media all across the world. And who helped them? The United States. You know why we did it? not because we're malicious and bad guys, etc. No, there's black and white world does not exist in either direction, okay? No, we did it because we thought, hey, if we radicalize Muslims, and they will be more devout and fight the godless communists, because we were in the middle of the Cold War. And then we said, oh my God, they're atheists, those damn Soviet Union, the communists. Go get them, become more religious. And not just more religious and help the poor and the needy. No. Religion means you should pick up a gun and fire at the Soviets. So we helped the Saudis spread that poison throughout the world. And guess what happened? It blew up in our face. Yes, the Soviet Union's gone, now they're attacking us. And instead of figuring out, hey, maybe that was a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't have done that intervention. Maybe we shouldn't have spread that ideology. Maybe we shouldn't have also given them weapons, which then a guy named Osama bin Laden, who we helped and funded and supported in Afghanistan, that's a fact, then turn around and use it against us. Maybe you think the lesson from that is don't get into and fund them and give them weapons in the first place. Maybe Jimmy's right, that we could actually learn from history. So what is the most successful plan the United States has ever done in foreign policy?
Marshall?
The Marshall Plan. Everyone knows it, but no one in TV will talk about it. None of the think tanks talk about it. None of the politicians talk about it. But that's part of what made America great. That's why people loved us, because we took two countries that we were in a disaster, the biggest war in history. One had Nazis, the other one attacked us at Pearl Harbor. Our biggest enemies, some of the worst scoundrels, most evil enemies in the history of mankind. And we turned them into our top allies. Jesus Christ, that is amazing. It's the most amazing accomplishment, I would argue, perhaps in human history. And people say I'm getting too jingoistic about America, but I believe in America, I believe in that idea, I believe we can do that. But in order to do that, we have to think. And we have to actually get beyond the corruption. Because all of these so-called think tanks and the politicians and the media are funded by the same people. And they are funded to create more war, more conflict, not to solve the conflict and not to solve the wars. So when we get bombed by terrorists, unfortunately, that's not a mistake, that's not a oops, golly gee, how did that happen? It perpetuates the cycle of violence, which makes some people billions of dollars. It is sick, and that is how it happens. And if we don't get rid of the corruption, it is going to happen for time immemorial. So we gotta go to the root cause. We have got to stop letting private interests finance our elections. If you let defense contractors finance elections, of course you're gonna have more war. And by the way, more terrorism, because it helps them bring out more war. Watch the Young Turks commercial-free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.